I'm going to start the recording. Very good. Thank you, Mickey, and we will get going. So, excellent. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Erin Swenson-Klatt. I'm the Food and Handcraft Programs Coordinator from the American Swedish Institute. It's our pleasure to welcome you today to our second webinar in a series of 3 with our instructors coming from Sätergläntan to Minnesota this year. And so we are really happy to be here today with Beth Moen, who's joining us live from her home in Sweden. We're also here today with Paul Linden, who is a woodworker out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, who's spent some time with Beth in Sweden at Sätergläntan. And so Paul's gonna help with the conversation today, and we're gonna just have sort of a casual conversation, a little bit of presentation about what Sätergläntan is, in case you're not familiar, and then we'll definitely take some questions at the end. And so we would encourage you to add your questions to that Q&A button at the bottom of the page, or if you're joining us live from North House, you can talk to the staff person and get your questions in via them, and we will answer those at the end, or if they are helpful and clarifying during the conversation, we can jump in and get those during the conversation too. So go to that Q&A button and add your questions while we chat. And yeah, I will turn it over to Jessa for a welcome, and then we'll get started. So Jessa, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Erin. Hello, everyone. My name's Jessa Frost. I'm the program director up at North House Folk School, and we are really delighted to be doing this partnership program this year in celebration of the 100th anniversary of Sätergläntan. And we are especially pleased that Beth is going to be returning to Minnesota, I think for maybe even the 3rd trip, with her colleagues from Sätergläntan to teach classes here at North House and offer a presentation the Nordic Center in Duluth and teach classes at the American Swedish Institute as well. Sätergläntan has been such an inspiration to many of the teaching artists that we work with, and so important in continuing traditions of all sorts and helping to make them available to those of us who are here in Minnesota. It's really lovely to be able to celebrate this special anniversary with you all. We're especially appreciative of the support from the American Scandinavian Foundation that has made this big trip possible. And we're excited for many folks to be able to join us on campus. So with that, it's Wood Week here on campus. I think there's a blue building full of students who have just wrapped up our first speaker of the morning, and we've got a wood-fired pizza bake coming up this evening. So we've got lots going on, and we can't wait to hear from you, Beth and Paul. So thanks everyone for joining us.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the program about the visit and how you can hook up with Beth and the other instructors coming to Minnesota this June. So we'll come back to that. But first of all, we want to just jump in and make sure that if you're not familiar with what Sätergläntan is and you've just gotten kind of interested by ASI or North House or Fireweed's information about this this program today, we're going to share a little bit more about that school. So let me share my screen. Excellent. Okay, so we are here today with Beth Moen, who is one of the lead instructors for the Sätergläntan Institute for Handwork and Craft. And Sätergläntan has been around for 100 years. So we are really excited to be helping them celebrate this 100th anniversary, this big birthday. And Sätergläntan is in Dalarna, Sweden, which is the center of Sweden. It's a very important area in Sweden kind of for preserving traditional culture and craft. They've done a lot of work there to keep traditional craft alive. And so we are going to zoom in on where Sätergläntan is. This is the school from above. It's in Dalarna. So that's a small town in the southern part of, or down south of Lake William. And here is the school getting closer. This is the kind of main building. And then we have the classroom buildings and dormitories. And this campus has kind of evolved over the last 100 years, right, Beth? So
Yes.
yeah, so they've added more buildings as the school has grown. And you can see some of their lovely neighbors and the view from the top of the hill. So it's a pretty magical place. And this school primarily now serves for 4 school year courses that can last between 1 and 3 years. So students of all ages, mostly Swedish, but also from around the world, can join in a specific concentration. So you attend for blacksmithing, woodworking, hand sewing, or hand weaving. And then you can elect to stay for a 2nd or 3rd year. Sätergläntan also teaches short courses and distance courses. So the short courses especially run over the summer, and they're a great opportunity for especially Americans to come and get a taste of Sätergläntan. And then the distance courses are partly based at Sätergläntan and then partly online. So those are mostly for folks based out of Scandinavia. But what is really special about Sätergläntan is that you're really working with the materials from their raw state all the way through to the finished process. And Sätergläntan, unlike other schools around Sweden, which also are preserving handcraft traditions through teaching, gives students these opportunities to work in these more traditional ways and really learn and preserve these long traditions. So you're working with experts in their fields, including Beth and the other 3 instructors who will be coming to Minnesota this spring. But here you see one of the big fall projects, which is the blacksmithing students. And I think a lot of the other students join in this too, but they're making coal from scratch, which is a long and traditional process in Sweden in the forests. Working in the blacksmith shop, using coal-fired forges throughout the school year. In the woodworking program, working especially with hand tools and kind of the more traditional woodworking forms, but then also giving students kind of these really good basics to get on and try new things, as you'll see later. Here's Faye with a class working away. And then likewise in the hand sewing and weaving classes, they're working with the raw materials as well. So practicing spinning and natural dyeing, then doing hand sewing as well as machine sewing, but with kind of that specific traditional focus. And then with the weaving classes, especially weaving with linen, which is an older tradition that's not taught as much elsewhere. So sort of a lot of emphasis on reconstructing older pieces, older methods, and figuring out how those can give students a really good basis for traditional craft. Yeah, and it's not a super big school. So here's one school assembly, and most of the students are living on site during the school year. And then, yeah, today we're going to hear more about the wood carving program. So Beth sent over some of these photos. Here's Beth working on a coopering project. And Beth, you can feel free to jump in here, because you work with all kinds of woodworking projects, not just the traditional ones. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of these projects?
Yeah, I can say that I do some furniture because I'm also a furniture maker. I have been for a lot of years. So you can vad heter det? You can get furniture and I draw it the way you want.
Yeah.
So that's one part, and I also work a lot with slöjd and adds and axes is the one I like best, and I also have done this coopering project for a couple of years, studying old tradition with the coopering.
Yeah. And those are all things that you're teaching then in the woodworking curriculum too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And some more.
Yes, of course. Yeah, here's some of the projects that you sent over from students. So will you tell us a little bit about these as well?
Yeah, it's just some various things. Of course, we work a lot with axe and adzes, do bowls and a lot of spoons, and also have a part of with the bend boxes with the splitting pine from scratch, from a log to a box. And we have some also, we work a little bit with birch bark.
Yeah. Yeah. And these are probably the final student projects.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's final student. So it's what you call in Norwegian ölhöna, beer hen. And there's also a chair who is a project work at the end.
Yeah.
It's just some example.
Yeah. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to share the other information about Sätergläntan in the chat, and then we'll also send it after class. But I'm going to stop sharing and again introduce Paul Linden, who again is a Minnesota-based wood carver, but has spent some time with Beth both here in the US and then also over in Sweden at Sätergläntan. So Paul, will you tell us a little bit more about you and how you found out about Sätergläntan and first got started working with Beth?
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to mention first and foremost, I think primarily when Beth refers to her students or the students she's working with, Sätergläntan is primarily, as you said before, Erin, primarily a 9-month program, something we would think normal academic schedule program. My only experience is from taking the short summer courses, as you mentioned. I would love to be able to say that I've gotten to spend a year, multiple years there as a long-term student, but I only have the perspective of summer courses, which obviously it's going to be different. But I think in the time we've known each other and the multiple times that I've been to the school, I think I've gotten kind of an idea of how Beth works with her students. She shared a lot of information with me before about how she guides their process through their time. I think I'll let Beth share how those maybe year 1, year 2, year 3 programs can kind of look or work differently from each other. It's not well, I guess I've already started to share what this is. It's not a 3-year program per se, but the way I've understood it, a 1-year program. And then if students and instructors consider it appropriate, students can add additional years up to 3. And so I've really been interested in that fact that it allows for the flexibility of students and instructors to kind of follow the path that works for the individual, not necessarily say, in a more rigid program where a student would jump into something for 3 years, that's not perfect for everyone. And so I've been appreciative of that. I'm headed toward my question here, and it has to do with the way that I've noticed Beth leads her students toward what I would call is kind of how to guide students toward being a holistic woodworker. And one of the things you mentioned before, Erin, has to do with where our materials come from. What part are we in the source of these materials. And then from there, it starts to turn into the tools that we're using and what aspect of the making of those tools we have ourselves, and so leading Beth in that direction, I'd love to hear your words about what your aim is for your students and what your hope and expectation is for them to kind of guide them toward being a whole woodworker.
Okay, and that's kind of a difficult question actually, but I think the main thing is we can talk about the first year, that it's kind of the basics. We start with the basics. So it's a lot of techniques, different techniques, and you can try them for quite a short time actually. So maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, different techniques, traditional techniques. And then when you get more and more skilled, because all the courses are building on each other, then you have to work more
self-directed.
Yeah, self-directed, more and more. So second year is a little less of a teacher time, and third year even more. So I don't know if I answered your questions, but I think the main thing is to learn the ground techniques and then grow in your own way and in your own time to get a multiple woodworker.
Mm.
I don't know if that's a good answer, but I think that's the way I think about it.
I appreciate that. It is a tough question. I agree. And I ask it just based on, like I say, what I've absorbed and what I've heard from you in the ways in which I've seen you guide students toward making hand planes, as opposed to, to really allow them to wrap their mind around. We're all tool users, and there's something about making your own or being a part of making your own tools that really ends up making our tools our own. Yeah, I mean, that's just one specific example, but I've really been appreciative of watching the way in which I've seen you guide what I understand your students toward. It's just one facet of it, and I really enjoy that. To what extent do you feel it's been important for your students to, as Erin was describing the school, I think from the pictures, some folks who haven't visited would get the feeling from certain images that it is a little bit of a remote and isolated location. And in some ways, I think that's so special. I work at an academic institution that's right in the middle of a big city and with lots of distractions and lots of crazy. And I always think of Sätergläntan as being just the opposite of that, just really the end of the road and really very isolated, and the privilege that is for students to really be able to focus without a lot of external distractions. In what way do you think that might be linked to the importance of just finding a safe place for folks to do their best work? That's a big picture view, but the small picture view is, as I've walked through the shop and noticed how you allow for students to have their own independent bench and cabinets and storage spaces and working spaces, and how important that can be to have a place where you're safe and comfortable to do your best work. And even in the bigger picture, just even the location of Sätergläntan. How do you think that maybe affects your students, or how do you push to provide for that? Yeah,
actually, it is quite isolated. And I think also the students, they recognize it's quite isolated. They are sort of in a bubble when they are up. With a lot of people around them who are interested in the same things. So I think it's a good opportunity, of course. But then, of course, it sometimes can be too much. So we need to show ourselves outside the school also.
Right.
But I can think about when I went to school. It was quite similar, and I thought it was fantastic just to concentrate. And of course, that was before the time of internet and Facebook and that sort of things. But I think they have sort of the same, and I think they can grow quite a lot in that, in a good direction, because it's quite isolated. It's not so many things except woods around them.
Well, the next topic I was interested to hear your reflection on is having to do with the sources of your own inspiration. When I believe I'm correct to say that a lot of the work that you do, or a lot of the craft that you pursue, aside from the slides you've shown of your work and the cabinet work or the furniture building that you will do on commission or to, in a bespoke sense toward customers, but it seemed as though I'd noticed a lot of your work is motivated by looking at historic objects, looking at objects from the past. I believe you get a lot of inspiration from looking through museums or old woodcraft objects, and then I know you start to interpret that toward your students and sharing in your pedagogy. But I just, speaking personally, how do you see that link, or what does that feel like to you to be looking to the past as a source of inspiration for your work?
Yeah, I think it's kind of double, because in the school we work with tradition. We look a lot of old items and museums and things, and my interest is of course connected. The school and my own work is connected. So I think it's the school has made me more and more interested in old techniques, and I've always been very interested in hand tools and work with hand tools. But I think it's two ways, and I also think that I get quite inspired by my students, actually.
Yeah, certainly I've noticed in your own work and in the work of your students too, there's kind of a generous push for, I don't mean to infer that students are asked to just simply recreate objects from the past, but studying them and kind of understanding them is a great jumping off point to then see how you put your own twist on things, or how we not only keep the craft traditions alive, but then also, to allow ourselves to take steps forward as we put our own personal interpretations on them. That's another way of keeping these traditions alive, is taking the next steps. And yeah, would you add something to that? Is that something?
Yeah, I think tradition is always going forward. It's not that you preserve something. It's has always been a tradition. Is something you it goes forward all the time. So you can look back, but then you have to look forward too, and see what you can do about the skills you have learned of looking at the old traditional things, of course. So it's not like we do copies of old things all the time. We do it as to learn, actually, and then going forward. And we live in 2023 right now, so that we have to remind that we do.
Yeah, the next direction that I had been thinking of was considering the ways in which you guide the students' work, and then considering your own personal motivations for the work that you like to do in your own practice away from teaching. definitely it's the most rich or vibrant for the students to be able to be exposed to the work that really lights a fire for you. You know, that's the best way to be able to teach, is obviously something that you're very passionate about. And so the coming from the sources of inspiration that you seek yourself, I was really interested, and certainly you've said a couple sentences about this, but I'm going to ask for one more that have to do with then, you know, mashing those two together, like what you want to impart in your students and how you model just exactly that, the way that you model what you do yourself in your own private practice, and then like how that can work for them, or the value they can gain from that.
Take the question again. I didn't follow.
Well, maybe you already answered it, but I guess I was just allowing room if there
I think you have a point that you have to be excited over the things you are going to teach, of course, and that then it makes you a good teacher. You have to be excited. You have to think that's important, and you think it's fun also. I think fun is also some important things to think of. Then, of course, it's not always fun. Sometimes it's not very fun, but in the end, it's going to be fun, and you can feel some harmony in what you do. And I also think that it's a way to learn a lot about yourself. If you start in craft, you know, learn a lot. You have a travel in yourself. I think everyone has, and sometimes it can be hard, but often it's very nice.
Yeah, that just popped the words of our friend Nicholas, that it's a hard, slowed life. No, words were never truer, that it's a long journey, and it's fruitful and it's rich, but no one said it was easy. I think the last question I was going to ask you, again in reference to your students, and you led into this perfectly with this choice of a hard road, and I was just wondering how you guide your students. One of the considerations of pedagogy and guiding students, and I think I really understood that if students make it to the third year of the program at Sätergläntan, they are starting to really look closely at what their lives as professionals will be, like what's the aim that they need to take if they're really going to turn this into a lifelong practice, whether, you know, and perhaps a professional practice, or maybe just a lifelong, you know, practice for themselves. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about what strategies that you take or goals that you set for students during their third year, as you're trying to impart the responsibility that it takes for folks to commit to making it a life practice, not just a hobby to dabble with.
Yeah, of course. Third year is we think of it as one step at the school and one step outside. So it's kind of a start to start something, a workshop of your own, or courses, or something that you work as a professional. So third year is the first step, and I don't know if I guide them very much. Actually, I think they guide themselves. Actually, I think they are very. They're very into it. Otherwise, you don't go at the third year.
Yeah.
You need to really have the interest and really work. And actually, they do. It's no problems with them. They just work, and they're excited about the work they do.
Beth, will you tell us a little more about what students do after Sätergläntan? What kinds of things might they go on to, for example?
Well, it's very diverse, of course. Some starts their own workshop, often together with have courses, short courses, mostly. Some goes to other schools to become some furniture maker or restoration of buildings, some of them. And some just go for Sätergläntan because they want a break, of course.
Yeah.
So it's very diverse, actually. I can say everyone go in one direction, everyone is spread out.
Of course.
So, but I think the most of them are still working with wood. What I know.
Yeah. And if you stay for all 3 years, you would have the opportunity to take the journeyman's test
Yes.
as one option. Not everyone would do that, but that's a way to kind of show that you've reached a specific level of competency to go out and work elsewhere.
Yeah. So that's a good thing that you can do on this journeyman, I think.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite new in this. Maybe it's 15 years
Right.
old that you can do a journeyman in slöjd.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have some more questions?
I have another question. Can I share my screen again? I'm going back to the photos of the final projects because like at the end of each school year, the students will show some of their best work from the year. What about these projects are exciting to you? What do you like most about them?
I think the chair is, I feel quite happy about it.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, of course, but I know when he worked with it, it's a guy who made it. And all the work actually it was in it. It's branches of spruce has bended and put together. And the other one, I think it's quite traditional. I think it was a very exact and really beautiful work.
Yeah.
And of course I could show really a lot of pictures, but I just chose these two, what I have as an example. So, and also the project work you can do they do very diverse things. So,
exactly.
And some want to go in a technique and some want to make a chair or it's very diverse. What they do. And I think also it's very exciting for us as teachers to follow the project work that they
so this is
choose.
something when they're coming up with the projects by themselves, are they coming to you for advice or assistance at all, or are they doing it independently really at the end of the year?
Of course they get advices, so we have time for them, but also sometimes there is objects that I haven't done, so I have to research a lot in the subject, and I think that's also very exciting for me. That is new projects that I haven't done, and I have to research a lot.
Sounds lots of fun. We have quite a few questions about different things, but first one, I was wondering if we could take the question from Judy. Can you talk a little bit about where you learned woodworking and how you came to teaching at Sätergläntan?
I started, it was a very long time ago. I've always been interested in wood and woodwork, but it started at school in, I think, 1980 with the slöjd and woodwork. So that's where I started, actually. And then I went to different schools. So I was a furniture maker. I did my journeyman in furniture. And then we also started our own shop, me and Anneli.
Mhm.
And it was in Leksand, so it was quite close to Insjön, where the school is. So when there was opportunity for me to be a teacher there, I thought maybe I will try. And then I've been there for over 20 years.
Yeah. Related to that, Fred asked the question, often as craftspeople, we have someone who is or was a mentor. Did you have any mentors or guides to help you become a professional craftsperson and teacher?
No.
Very good. You went on your own journey.
Yeah, I think so. I don't
Yeah.
have any. I haven't had any mentor in that way.
Yeah. How is, this is my own question, but how has slöjd changed for, I guess this is quite a big question, but it seems like slöjd has changed a lot in the last 30 or 40 years. People have become much more interested in it. So when you were starting your woodworking, how was it kind of different for you to be able to learn that? Where could you learn it from versus now, where would you probably go to learn about slöjd?
Yeah, when I went to the first school, it was the only school in Sweden who has this kind of slöjd. I think there's some more opportunity now to learn slöjd, and it's more schools you can go to, a lot more. And I think, well, it's going to change some, I think, the interest of the items they do, I think. And I think also that the interest of hand tools has been increased a lot. We have really good machines right now with the CNC, and you can do whatever, and 3D print, and then maybe that's why hand tools is so popular. And I think all my students really, they come to Sätergläntan because they want to do from the green tree to some items, and just with your hands.
Yeah,
I think that's a big point.
yeah, we had a couple questions about harvesting the trees. So folks are wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how students are participating in harvesting the wood. Can you tell us more about what kinds of trees they're cutting down and how they're preparing them?
Yes, we have owned some forests at Sätergläntan, so we can take some trees there that are appropriate for what we're going to do. And we're cutting them down, and they are going to participate, of course, in the harvesting of the trees. And we also do smaller and bigger trees, and some of the species we don't have, so we have to take them but we try to take them quite close as possible.
Yeah.
What was your question, actually? I forgot.
Just to tell us a little more about how the students are working with the green wood. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We especially at the autumn we do a lot of green woodworking,
Mhm.
and we also do prepare some blanks that we dry before it's going to dry until spring maybe.
Mhm.
Um,
What are the different projects you're using those for?
yeah, for coopering, coopering we need to dry it, and for band boxes we need to put them in water in the river, and for furniture also we have to maybe do some blanks and dry it.
Yeah.
And of course we also work with some boards that we buy of course
Yeah.
to some items.
Yeah. Paul, do you have any questions to jump in with?
I don't. It's not.
Okay.
I'm really appreciative of the discussion, but I don't.
Great.
I'm just enjoying thinking this through and
Yeah.
remembering, and I know, Erin, and I'm just saying this quickly, but I know that you'll put in a connection for viewers of this recording to be able to connect to not only this fantastic video that was made of Beth in the practice she uses in coopering, which is just a fantastic video start to finish of your cooperage process, but also another video that produced by Pioneer PBS here in Minnesota on Made in Sweden, which is just such a fantastic kind of visual exposure of what the Sätergläntan experience is like for students, and kind of the crossover between areas that they enjoy. And yeah, so whether it would be said out loud, I'm saying it now, don't miss for any folks who have not been able to visit or just want to kind of be able to absorb what this place is like. I think that Pioneer TV did such a fantastic job of really capturing that feeling. Yeah,
that's really nice video, the Sätergläntan video, I think.
Yeah, we'll put it, here's the link to the YouTube one. Oh, good, Mickey got it. Great. Yeah, well, there's some more great questions here. So I think we can take the questions from Phil. I'm kind of jumping around in different themes, but Phil's wondering, as a teacher, how have things changed over the years? How has your style or the students or what you've been teaching changed since you've been there for quite a while?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. I think I know it has changed a lot, but I really don't know really how. I think the students are more into the process more than into the finish. They are more interested in the process. So we work a lot with the process, and I've been more relaxed, actually. I'm not very perfect. So I'm going to be less and less perfect. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. That actually goes close to Carolyn's question. She said, I would love to hear more about craftspeople learning more about themselves through the practice of craft. Paul, you could also answer this if you like. And is it something to do with the discipline to learning a skill and becoming an expert? That's a good thing.
I don't think so. It's not to be an expert. It's more that you can improve, and you have some steps you have to take, and how do you take the steps, because you're always coming to one point where it's starting to get very difficult, and you have to take another step, And how do you do that? That's the thing I mean, but that you learn a lot yourself. How do you react when you're crying, everything goes apart, and then you come over it.
Yeah. These are good life lessons. We have a few other questions about for a potential student who is going to work at Sätergläntan. What advice would you give to them on how they should approach a class, or I guess the program, in regards to the expectations from the school and the instructor?
The expectation of the students. What's the question?
It's more like the expectations from Sätergläntan and from you and the other instructors. How should students come? What's the best way to come to the school to be ready to do a class with you or with the other teachers there?
Yeah, I think have your eyes opened and are willing to work quite hard sometimes.
Yeah.
And of course have an interest in the historic and tradition.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a good question from Cara. As someone who is new to carving, I wonder if you can share some of the carving skills that students are encouraged to focus on when learning at the school. Well, you talked a little bit about the basic things that you learned in the first year, but can you just say more about what those might be?
Yeah, we start the year with some carving practice, just practice with your knife. And then we also practice a lot with axe. I have my famous axe gymnastic every morning. So we do spoons, and we do a lot of other things just with a knife. And then we do dough bowls and bowls, axing and adzing. And also do these bend boxes, which a lot with the shaving horse, draw knife and travisher, and so we do some different steps actually. So we start a lot with knife work and axe work, and then we go further with other tools.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a good question, but
yeah, I think that's very helpful. And I would definitely encourage folks to check out the Sätergläntan website. And although it is in Swedish, most internet browsers now allow you to change the language, so you can read a lot of it in English. And there is some materials on the website in English. And there are quite a few questions here about how to join the long program. So we can take some of those, and maybe I can help with some of those as well. So there's just some basic questions about how you sign up about for the program, and then how it is taught. So Beth, we can maybe answer these together, but to sign up for the program, you would apply online, and the applications I think are due in the spring each year.
Yeah, it's 15th of April actually.
Okay,
it's the date. You need to
okay, so everybody, you have a month to sign up.
Yes, yeah.
Classes next year.
Yeah, yeah. To be sure, you need to go before 15, but of course you can try to apply later. Sometimes there are some spaces people don't jump off or do other things. So, but 15th of April to apply.
Yeah, and when you're applying, do you have to show previous experience in woodworking or the other crafts?
Yeah, it's a plus if you have experience of woodworking or other crafts. Actually, you
Yeah.
get higher. You get on a higher level, and of course
Yeah.
you need your grade.
Yes, so you show that you have a high school diploma, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's open to anybody who's got more than a high school education, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and then we had a question about whether it's possible for someone who isn't Swedish to do the 1 to 3 program, and you have students from all over the world. So because this is a Swedish school, you have to teach in Swedish, but will you talk a little bit about how international students kind of work in the classroom?
Yeah. Well, it's a Swedish school, so the education is in Swedish, but we have a lot of international students who don't speak Swedish. So we also have some, often what I do often, that because not everyone understands English, so we need to do it in Swedish, but then we often have a summary in English. So we are quite aware that we need to also speak English.
Yeah.
But we have also had students from Korea, for example, who didn't speak English, and they learned Swedish quite fast.
Yeah.
So it's, but not everyone learns Swedish at all, and some learn it in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's different. But we are aware of that. If we take students who don't speak Swedish, we have to have a lot of information, and we have summaries in English. And of course, the most is a practical work. So I think most of them are managed quite well.
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you're a student, you would pay for staying on site, and you stay on campus, and you have your food and your housing there. So there's a dining hall that does some meals, and then you're responsible for some meals if you're a student.
Yes.
Yeah. Hopefully that's some good start to information. So if that piques your interest, anybody, Mickey added the link to the application for next year, and it's great to check out the materials that Sätergläntan has online. And then you have to get your student kind of visa stuff worked out too with the Swedish government, but lots of people have done it before. So yeah, Paul,
and
go
you're
ahead.
all welcome to apply.
Let me say too, I wouldn't want folks to think that going to spend a whole 9 months is the only way to experience Sätergläntan, or perhaps the only way to spend time with Beth. Speaking from someone who is only able to take advantage of some short courses, that's a fantastic way to be able to feel your way around the school and get to log some time, not only our ability to be able to bring Beth to work with us here as well. So research the summer courses program.
Yeah, and we added the link to the summer courses. But that's actually, Paul, Judy had asked, can you talk a little bit more about the short courses that you've done at Sätergläntan?
Yes. Most of the courses that I've taken there involved what we're calling slöjd, or green woodworking. I have felt so lucky to be able to take a couple of courses from our friend Joge Sundqvist in slöjd, or knife work, axe work. I've been so fortunate to have been able, I think 7 times I've been able to take short courses peppered over a couple of years, but Per Heldorf and Fritjof Runhal and Beth and a number of these folks, Raman Parsan, who we now have been able to establish a connection with, and then bring those folks. I know I'm just speaking for Minnesota, but we've been able to bring those folks to teach here, and a really fantastic relationship has started between the 2 schools and in that instructor community. So well, I just can't say enough about it, but I don't think folks are interested in hearing me go on and on about it. But really, it's been absolutely impactful on my practice and my approach to woodworking. The short times that I've been able to spend there working with different people has just been really life-changing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about those classes, I'm sure you can track Paul down and he'll tell you more. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have oh, go ahead. No,
If we're wrapping up, can I say one more thing, Erin? Is that
absolutely? Yeah.
I just wanted to say to Beth, I know Beth does not seek attention, and if she would not choose to aggrandize herself, and I'm so appreciative of you doing this webinar with us. And I am speaking for so many folks when I say, Beth, you might not claim me as one of your students, but you should know that I call you one of my teachers, and you're one of the significant mentors in my life. And as I say, I am speaking for so many folks who I know who have had the chance to work with you or have been impacted by your work. And I just want to say thank you so much for the generous work that you've done putting toward the woodworking community, and just the work that you continue to do. It has just been absolutely so valuable, and I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Paul. That was nice.
Yeah, well, we're very lucky to have this tight connection between Minnesota and Sweden, and yeah, Sätergläntan's a very special place in Sweden, and also it's a special place to many of us in the community of people who do craft in the United States too. So it's so good to know you and to have you coming this summer. So
we appreciate it very much also to have this cooperation with you.
Yeah,
like I said,
it's
everyone
good.
at Sätergläntan.
Yeah. Well, to just wrap up, I will say a few words about how people can meet you when you're coming to the US this June. As Jessica said at the beginning, the American Scandinavian Foundation is supporting this trip from 4 of Sätergläntan's instructors to the US this year in observation of the 100th anniversary. And so Beth is coming to represent the woodworking program. We have Johan Säfström, who's one of the blacksmithing instructors, Johanna Runbeck, who's one of the hand sewing instructors, and then Susanna Eiten, who is one of the weaving instructors. And so they'll be all headed northwards, first of all, to visit Grand Marais. So Jessa, you want to talk a little bit about the classes up north and other ways to meet the instructors up north?
Absolutely. Yes. Each of our guests will be teaching a 4-day class focused on a sort of beginning to intermediate level skill. All of them, I think, are classes that are pretty difficult to find, if not downright impossible in the United States. And that's a big reason that we wanted to bring them to share that knowledge with us. At North House, the classes are almost full or full, but we encourage you to put your name on our waiting list. You can do that on our website at northhouse.org because oftentimes plans change and spots open up. So we encourage you to do that. If being in one of the classes isn't a good fit for your schedule, all 4 of our guests will be demonstrating and around during North House's Wooden Boat Show and Summer Solstice event, which is June 16th, 17th, and 18th. It's a really wonderful weekend, so folks can pop up to Grand Marais and celebrate the arrival of summer and meet our guests and take part in all the other fun things that go on during that event, including a giant puppet show. So we're very excited about that. For folks who are in Duluth, we'll be sending our guests down south of Grand Marais to Duluth, where they will be giving a presentation on June 21st through the Nordic Center. And so there'll be more information on the Nordic Center's website about that in the coming weeks. But if you can't get to Grand Marais and you can't get to Minneapolis, Duluth is an option as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and then the 4 instructors are coming down to Minneapolis for the weekend of June 23rd through 25th. And we're really excited to be working with 3 fantastic partner organizations to host them here in Minneapolis. So we're doing a citywide takeover. And Beth is going to be working out of the Fireweed Community Woodshop. And then Johan's going to be at the Chicago Avenue Fire Arts Center, which teaches blacksmithing courses. And Susanna is going to be teaching out of the Weavers Guild of Minnesota's new space in downtown Minneapolis. So we're putting those classes on sale next Friday, the 24th, for ASI members or members of those partner institutions. And then the general public will be able to access those courses on Monday, the 27th. So check out that information on the ASI website. The courses are already posted, so you can read about Beth's bowl carving class and the other classes that are coming up if you search around on our website, and we'll also share the links in our follow-up email. And then we're looking forward to hosting them all for our June Makers Night, which is a free drop-in craft time at ASI too. So that'll be Thursday, the 22nd. So come on by and say hello. We'd love to see you. And also those courses do have some scholarships available, and we have a priority deadline for those scholarships this Sunday, March 19th. So we'll send out that link as well. Really encourage anybody who's interested to apply if that would make the class possible for you. So yeah, with that, I think I've said my piece. We have another webinar with Johan next month. We also had a lovely webinar with Johanna and Susanna together last month, and that's posted online. So if you missed that and now your interest is piqued, we can share the link for that as well, and you can watch that if you missed it. And we hope to see you on for the April webinar with Johan, because we'll have a conversation about the blacksmithing program more in depth. So Paul, Beth, Jessa, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to have
Thank you, everyone.
part of our day with you. Yeah, and Beth, we can't wait to see you in June. So
Really soon.
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, happy Wood Week to everyone at North House, and happy weekend to everybody else. So
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.